Welcome into the DFS Den. It's Dave Eddy here, aka Corporal Eddy on Twitter. Back at you with another wild card round showdown video. This one is going to be for the Ravens and Bengals. Boy, this would be a great matchup if we had a healthy Lamar Jackson going for the Ravens. Probably be, to me, the most entertaining one on the slate. But even if Lamar plays, he's not going to be healthy. He hasn't played in quite a while, nor has he practiced. But when it comes to showdowns, they are going to be different than my normal videos. They're not going to be, the same as the main slate that, I typically produce. With showdowns, it's a whole different format. You're talking about having a captain spot, which is unique in the fact that the salary is 1.5 times what the player is in the flex. And then they also score 1.5 times what they would normally score. You got the captain spot and you got 5 flex spots. You have to have at least one player from each team in there, so you can't just, load it up with the Bengals, which is what I'd like to do in this matchup, but we can't. And then more than anything, correlation and just game theory is really paramount here. It's a very volatile slate because you've got just one game and you've got such a small player pool, but you can't play in the same way that you do your normal main slate lineups. You definitely got to make sure that your captain is correlated. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. And the main part of it here for me is figure out what you think the theory behind the game is going to be. In this particular matchup, I think that the Bengals are going to have a fairly easy time here with the Ravens. So I'm going to be heavy on the Bengals. I think that they're going to do it through the air more than anything. So Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, that's kind of where my focus is going to lie. And I think that I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think it's going to be something like, 28-10, something like that. So I'm definitely going to utilize that information to customize how I build these lineups so that if I'm correct on, the flow of the game, on the theory of the game, then my lineups are naturally going to, fit right in there as well. So with that all being said, let's hop into captains here. I'm not interested in anyone on the Baltimore side of things. Like I said, I wish Lamar was healthy in this matchup because he'd be a guy I'd love to throw in the captain spot. But alas, he's not. So I'm looking at Joe Burrow, looking at Jamar Chase, I'm looking at T. Higgins, looking at Joe Mixon. No big surprises here. These are the big guns from that team. When it comes to captains, when they're a quarterback and they're a traditional pocket passer, I look to stack them with two pass catchers. I'd say 2 receivers, but could be a tight end. Definitely could be a pass-catching running back as well. Joe Mixon is an example. He's had, 5 catches, 7 catches, 5 catches each of the last 3 weeks. So he's a guy who does catch the ball. So I could pair him, with a Joe Burrow as opposed to, a Chase or a Higgins. He's a running back that would be in play for that. But if it's a Lamar Jackson, who is not going to be my captain pool, but if it were, I wouldn't force 2 pass catchers with Lamar. I would force 1, but he's going to do a lot of his damage on the ground, and I don't need pass catchers if he's going to be, getting 100 yards on the ground, or 100 is a little extreme, but if he's going to be getting 50, 60 on the ground, maybe getting a touchdown with his legs, I don't need to force 2 pass catchers with him. But if Burrow is going to be the optimal captain, he's going to have to carry receivers along with him. When I do a receiver or a tight end, I always want to bring along the quarterback with him. So if I have Jamar Chase in the captain spot, I have Burrow in the flex. If I got T. Higgins in the captain spot, I got Burrow in the flex. With Joe Mixon, I don't have to do anything special. He doesn't, super correlate with anybody. If anything, the defense would be more in play, but I'm not going to force a defense with a captain running back. But that's how I like to attack that. Quarterback specifically, I'm only going to have Joe Burrow in my pool. I don't care who the quarterback is going to be for the Ravens. Even if it's Lamar, I'm just going to take the stand and say, I don't think he's going to be healthy. I don't think he's going to be an optimal play. I'm just going to play Burrow. Very similar to when I play him in the captain spot. Even when I play him in the flex, I want to stack him with 2 pass catchers. Now, one of those pass catchers can be the captain. So I could stack him with, let's say, Jamar Chase as a captain and T. Higgins in the flex. Now, that would be expensive, but it's doable. You just have to find the guys that are going to, save you some cash so that you can afford to do those kind of things. And there's not a whole ton of great savings on this slate. There is a little bit. And those savings are on the Ravens side of the field, so you could pay up for, the studs and kind of mix in some of the cheap Ravens. But there's other ways we can save a little bit of money that we'll get into here in a little bit as well. But let's move on to running backs. Again, I think that this game is going to be won through the air by the Bengals. I still am interested in Joe Mixon because he is part of that air game. And, he hasn't been getting in the end zone a whole lot this year. He had the 4-touchdown outburst. Other than that, he scored 3 touchdowns. So he's not going to probably do it for us. Getting into the end zone, we're going to need rushing yards, and we're going to need some receiving from him. In this game, I definitely could see him getting in the end zone. It's not like Joe Mixon is, allergic to it, but that's why I'm not super heavy on him. And the captain spot, he's more of a flex play for me. But then on the Ravens side of things, I don't know exactly who's going to be playing. I do love J.K. Dobbins. I just don't know if for $8,200 I love him for showdowns. So I don't know how much of him, if any, I'm going to play. I think Kenyon Drake is probably where I would see my exposure for running backs from Baltimore. I don't know what's going to happen here with Gus Edwards. I guess I'm going to assume he's going to be out. So we'll just have to cross that bridge, when we get a little more information. But I don't see him getting double-digit points if he's healthy, let alone, coming in, with a head injury. So he may not even be active. So Kenyon Drake at $3,000 is very interesting. I could see him putting up anywhere from 5 to 10 points, and at that salary, that plays very well, and that's how we can get to Chase, Burrow, and Higgins if you so desired. A guy like that. Receivers, should be pretty obvious here. Where I'm looking. Typically, 3 receivers at the minimum is what I like to do. And this is the same case here. For the Bengals, I'm interested in Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. And I don't mind throwing some Trenton Irwin in there. He's only $1,400. Doesn't take a whole lot for him to be optimal. He's had 2 of the last 4 games where he's scored at least 13.5 points. Granted, those are games where he gets in the end zone, but who's to say he's not going to get into the end zone here? On the Ravens side of things, not a huge fan of the passing game. I'm probably going to just set a max to 1 pass catcher from them. Or I should at least say one receiver. So Demarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, James Prochet, they're in play for me. Obviously, I like Robinson the most, but he's also the most expensive. I'm not sure if he even gets us double-digit points. He probably doesn't. So his price tag makes him, hard to play. Sammy Watkins at only $2,200. I do like that a little bit more. Not expecting a whole lot out of him. 5, 6, 7 points maybe. But at $2,200, I think that's in play. James Prochet's the minimum $200. I don't know what we're going to get out of him. He could be an absolute nothing burger. If he is a nothing burger, I'm only playing Prochet if I'm playing some combination of Burrow, Higgins, and Chase. That's going to be another way where I can slide them in. Theoretically, I could play Prochet and Drake to get those guys in. You do have options, but Prochet would be a guy that I can utilize to get those 3 studs in. But that's where I stop at receivers for this matchup. Tight ends. God, I wish I could say, Mark Andrews is my dude. Without Lamar, or even with Lamar, I guess. Andrews in a $7,800 price tag. It's hard to trust him. Prior to last week when he had, 9 catches for 100 yards, he hadn't put up even double digits in the last month. So hard to trust, and you got to pay up for him. If Lamar plays, I guess I have some interest because that's going to be his security blanket, but I'm not going to be heavily into Andrews at best case scenario. He's probably, their best pass catcher though. And in a game where they should be trailing, I'll probably end up getting them in the 25 to 40% neighborhood just because, again, I have to play, a Raven. And of all the guys, he would be the one I trust the most. Probably more likely to roster a guy like Kenyon Drake, but if they're going to be playing from behind, which is what I think, they're going to have to throw the ball. And as much as I don't trust Mark Andrews at this point, I trust him the most. Isaiah Likely's half the cost to him. I don't know what we're going to get. He's very up and down, but he's a better value, or he's at least the same value. He's just half the price, so allows you to play more of those Bengals. And then Hayden Hurst is in play. Now that he's back, I don't expect a whole ton out of him, but I could see him definitely getting in the end zone. If he got to 7 points, I don't feel like that's terrible. It's going to get you off of some of the chase and some of the T that you could be playing. He's not too expensive. I see myself having maybe 40% Hayden Hurst, just as an example. Not a great value, but I think that it does make for a good play. Kickers are much more in play, I think, than people give them credit for here. Kickers are another way to save some money. Typically, you're spending around the $4,000 to $4,500 range. You're going to get guys who can get you double-digit points. They're not going to break a slate and get you 30, but it's not uncommon for them to get double digits. I really think you've got two good kickers in this matchup. Tucker probably makes for a decent play because I don't expect that you're going to see a lot of touchdowns from the Ravens, but I can see them moving the ball a little bit and getting in field goal range. And, Tucker kicks you 250-yard field goals, and he's paid himself off nicely. And then McPherson, I think, is a pretty solid kicker. It's just a matter of, do you think the Bengals score touchdowns, or do you think they settle for some field goals? I think they score touchdowns in this game, as I said earlier. So not so into McPherson. When it comes to kickers as well, I'm going to be pretty heavy on Joe Burrow captain. He's probably going to be my highest owned captain. I do not play the team's kicker along with the captain quarterback, because if the captain quarterback is going to be optimal, that means they're scoring touchdowns. They're not settling for field goals, so they don't correlate very well. Another reason I'm going to be fairly low, if not, I wouldn't say completely out on, but 10-15% probably at most of Evan McPherson. And then we wrap it up here with defense. Defense is similar to kicker. I didn't mention this before, but with kicker, barring, an extreme game circumstance, I limit it to just one kicker. If I thought this was going to be a 12-9 type game, then I'd be pretty interested. I would allow multiple kickers in my lineup, but typically it's just one. It's the same thing with defense, unless it's going to be a game where I expect both defenses to have the opportunity to be optimal together. I'm going to just shy away, and I'm going to say, max of one. Typically don't play a defense in the captain spot. It'd have to be a pretty unique situation. Not super crazy unique. It definitely happens. But you've got to find them in a really good position. And I don't see that here. So I'm not going to play them in the captain spot, but I am definitely interested in some of the Bengals defense here. No matter who's at quarterback, I think that, the Bengals are going to be in play. The scoring for the defense, I think a lot of people look at it and they think, okay, well, we just need a defense that isn't going to give up a lot of points. Well, sure, that helps, but points come more from sacks and turnovers than anything. And if you get a defensive touchdown, you're in really good shape. And I definitely can see some sacks here. I definitely can see some turnovers here. You can't predict, defensive touchdowns, but all it takes is one to have somebody really in play. So that's what I'm thinking here on this slate. If you haven't done so yet, pop on over here, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn on notifications so that you get an alert when a new video comes out. And then if you haven't done so yet, check out this showdown video I have over here. It's going to not break down this particular slate. It's going to give you, showdowns in general. I think if you watch that and watch this video, you'll have some good luck this week. I hope you enjoy the games, and I wish you the best of luck on the slate.